All right, we're back. It's Thursday evening, and it's Weather for Weather Geeks time. It was a cold day today, and it's going to be a cold night tonight. But I've got great news for the upcoming weekend, and we're going to talk about the weekend, and actually we're going to really take a deep dive into the longer range on this evening's video, since things are pretty quiet in the short term. I wanted to show you another sunset time lapse this evening. This is from our Youngstown camera, which is perched high atop our transmitter tower on the south side of Youngstown. Sunset this evening, a couple minutes after 6, and just a few broken clouds left over early this evening from what was a fairly extensive lake-enhanced cloud deck earlier on today. Actually, these clouds brought us some somewhat surprising flurries earlier on today. Did not expect the coverage of the flurries to be quite as high as they were today, but we had some legit snow globe flurries around for a handful of hours, starting around mid to late morning and taking us into the early afternoon today. And boy, it was bone chilling out there. We only got into the mid-20s this afternoon. By the way, today is a notable day in the weather record book for our area. 2 years ago, we had 73 degrees, a record high, and the second warmest February day on record. Just 1 year after we set the record for the warmest February day on record in late February of 2017, it was 75 degrees. And also on this date, back in 2015, we had one of the coldest temperatures on record for our area. It was minus 16 that morning, our coldest temperature since January of 1994, when during that outbreak we set the record for the coldest temperature of minus 22 here locally. All right, down in the south this evening, as expected, they're dealing with snow in parts of the Carolinas, especially North Carolina, Raleigh and Charlotte included. East of Raleigh is where the bullseye is going to be this evening. There's going to be enough snow to certainly cause some big-time disruptions from about I-95 on east out towards the Outer Banks. All right, our weather quiet here over the next few days. Wanted to take a couple of moments to talk about NOAA's long-range outlooks, which were released today, including the month of March and then the spring outlook. Right now, their March outlook looks like this, showing elevated odds of a cooler than average month from roughly I-70 or I-80 on south. Highest odds of a cooler than average month right now from roughly Dallas to Atlanta and over towards the mid-Atlantic region. Now for us, we're kind of on the edge of that area. And overall, what you can take away from this map for eastern Ohio, western PA, March at this point looks like it may be quite a bit closer to average than meteorological winter, December, January, and February, which all three have been several degrees warmer than average. Whether we end up below average, I'm a little skeptical of that right now. I've kind of mixed feelings on this outlook. I certainly think the month is going to start out on a chilly note for the first handful of days of March. But there's still not going to be any blocking in the northern Atlantic or the Arctic. It's all going to depend on what happens out here in the northern Pacific and up into Alaska. If we get enough ridging up there, then you can get some cold air masses descending. If the ridging is not strong enough or far enough to the north, if the ridge is more centered out here, then you're going to get more of a Pacific flow, and I think the odds then tilt towards March being more of the same. So I have kind of mixed feelings, and I don't have a strong feeling yet, I guess, on the Pacific pattern. Stronger feeling, higher confidence that we're still going to see a pattern featuring no blocking in the northern Atlantic and the Arctic, and that does not favor cold weather in the east. But we can get cold in the east when we have a favorable situation in the eastern and northern Pacific. And I think NOAA's outlook is counting on there being what we call a negative oscillation, eastern Pacific oscillation throughout parts of March, allowing for some cooler air masses. Their outlook for March features elevated odds of a drier than average month across parts of the Midwest, Great Lakes, parts of the Ohio Valley as well. All right, the spring outlook. I was not surprised to see this. This is generally the pattern we've been in for a long time now, where the highest odds of near average or maybe somewhat cooler than average temperatures are out here, and the southwest is warm, the south is warm, the east is warm. This is just generally the pattern we've been in for quite some time now, and I agree with their spring forecast that this seems likely to continue as we go into meteorological spring. The precipitation outlook showing elevated odds of a wetter than average spring across parts of the Ohio Valley, the Midwest as well. Now, when you see a map like this, and given kind of the recent history in the spring of some pretty severe flooding later in the spring that we've had over the last 2 years in some parts of our area, this may raise your anxiety a little bit. Now, the flooding that we've had at times over the last couple of springs have been mostly from slow-moving thunderstorms that are not predictable on a scale of a few months. Just because we have increased odds of a wetter than average spring does not mean we're going to have a bunch of episodes where we have slow-moving storms sitting over the same area late in the afternoon hours, bringing 2 or 3 inches in a few hours. Can't predict that on a time scale like this, but you can point to trends overall that an active pattern, several systems coming through during the spring season, tilts the odds in favor of a wetter than average spring. But you just can't say that, oh boy, here we go again, we're going to have more flooding like the last couple of years. That's impossible to say at this point. All right, again, we're going to fly through the next few days because it's going to be just not a cloud in the sky kind of a situation for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as this high shifts off to the south. Of course, in the northern hemisphere, it's a clockwise flow around high pressure. That means we'll get into a little bit more of a southerly flow by Sunday, and that means it's going to warm up. I've got 51 in the forecast for Sunday afternoon. This is our next weather maker out here. It comes our way on Monday with elevated chances for showers. Again, happy hour run of the GFS ensemble is wacky, graphically speaking here, so we're going to ignore that. At the very end of next week, you notice our snowfall model lines here start trending up. And I do think as it turns colder at the end of next week, we could very well see some lake-enhanced and lake-effect snow showers. At the very end of February, we might add some to our fairly paltry February snow totals, but it's going to be at the very end of the month, at the end of next week, and perhaps the start of next weekend. I don't think a snowstorm seems very likely at the end of February, but I can see where we get waves of lake enhancement coming through northeast Ohio, northwest PA at the end of next week with the next fairly brief Arctic attack that, much like the one we're in right now, will only last probably a few days. That'll do it for me tonight. Thanks for watching Weather for Weather Geeks. I'll see you back here on Friday, everyone.